The engagement was arranged between the Carter family and the Miller family, but it's not for you, Anna Miller. My adoptive mother's voice cut through the haze, and the sharp sting of her hand across my face snapped me back to the present moment. It felt like I was reliving a scene from a terrible dream. The year was 1983, the day after my adoptive mother had brought her biological daughter, Clara Miller, back home. They were pressuring me to give up my fiancé so that Clara could marry him instead. In my previous life, a life that now felt like a painful memory, I had refused. This time, I said yes. In that other life, I had held on to the engagement with everything I had. After all, Ethan Carter and I had been neighbors for more than 10 years. Our families had arranged our engagement when we were both just infants. Even after it was believed Clara had passed away, my adoptive father wouldn't consider calling it off, especially since Ethan's father had secured an important position in the government. I grew up alongside Ethan, and we shared a childhood filled with simple memories and a quiet affection. I had pinned all my hopes on our future together, so much so that I had even applied to a university in the same city where he was stationed as a soldier. But just yesterday, a young woman had appeared at our door, clutching a jade pendant. My adoptive mother took one look at her and was convinced this was her long-lost daughter, Clara, who had been missing for 10 years. Back then, her 8-year-old daughter had vanished and a body was found shortly after. Fearing my adoptive mother wouldn't be able to handle the grief, my adoptive father had quietly adopted me from a distant relative. I was the same age as Clara, and for a decade I lived as her replacement. Publicly, I was Anna Miller, but at home, my adoptive mother treated me like a stand-in. One moment she would be holding me and crying, buying me new dresses and brushing my hair. The next, she would dig her nails into my arm, accusing me of stealing the life that should have been Clara's. My adoptive father always explained that she was dealing with deep emotional trauma, blaming herself for what happened to her daughter. But I never understood what I had done to deserve her unpredictable anger. Thankfully, I had Ethan. He would sneak treats from his house for me and offer words of comfort, promising me that everything would be better when we were older and I could come live with him. I threw myself into my studies, desperate for the college entrance exams, and finally earned a place at a university in the city where Ethan was based. But then Clara returned, claiming that she had always been in love with Ethan. I remember crying and screaming, refusing to let go of the future I had planned. I even considered desperate measures to secure our relationship. My adoptive mother, overwhelmed with guilt for the daughter she thought she had lost, asked me to give up my spot at the university so Clara could go instead. Seeing it as my only remaining option, I agreed. I married Ethan, believing I had finally found my happiness. But our married life was nothing like I had imagined. Ethan was away for long periods, leaving me alone with his parents, who pressured me relentlessly to have a son. They called me useless, blaming me for our inability to conceive. Meanwhile, Clara, who had taken my place at university, secured a stable government job. When I was finally about to give birth, she visited me in the hospital. "Anna," she said, "I'm pregnant with Ethan's child." My heart felt like it had turned to stone. I had planned to divorce him after the baby was born, but I never got the chance. I died on the operating table during childbirth. "Anna, are you really willing to give the engagement to Clara?" my adoptive mother asked, her eyes suddenly bright with hope. "Yes," I replied calmly. "It was always meant for her." Clara's lips curled into a smug smile as she leaned closer. "Smart choice." I managed a weak smile in return. "I hope you get everything you wish for." She scoffed. "You took my place for 10 years. How do you plan to make that up to me?" I didn't have an answer. Did she truly believe she was the real Clara Miller? I turned and walked out of the room, their laughter echoing behind me even as I reached the door. At dinner, Clara suddenly said, "Anna, why don't you sleep in my room tonight?" It was the same trick she had used before. In my past life, she claimed she wanted to sleep in her old bed to feel close to her childhood memories, but she had hidden mice in the sheets. My adoptive mother had even remarked, "Good thing it was Anna in there." What if it had scared Clara? I smiled politely. "There's no need. Mom worked so hard to get your room ready. I couldn't possibly take it. We're sisters, don't be so formal. What's mine is yours," she insisted warmly. My adoptive mother's eyes filled with tears. "Clara, you're so thoughtful." She then turned to me. Anna, you can sleep in the living room for tonight. Of course, as long as there are no mice, I said. I didn't care where I slept, as long as it was away from Clara. Seeing that she didn't push the matter, I suspected she had something worse planned. Later that night, when the house was quiet, I arranged a pillow under my blanket to make it look like I was sleeping on the sofa. Then, I quietly slipped out through a window. There were likely still mice in the house, and I wanted to be as far away as possible. I went directly to the Carter house. Since Ethan and I weren't married yet, his mother was still kind to me. Anna, what brings you here so late? Mrs. Carter asked, surprised but welcoming. I looked down, fidgeting with the sleeve of my shirt. I was just craving your homemade sauerkraut dumplings. Why the sudden craving? She asked, a smile in her voice. I don't know, I said softly, keeping my head down. Ever since Ethan came home on leave last time, I've been obsessed with anything sour. Her eyes lit up. You two, last time? I blushed and nodded. I was supposed to marry him anyway. It was just a matter of timing. She immediately took my hand, her wrinkled face breaking into a wide smile. Besides dumplings, what else do you want to eat? I'll make it for you. If it's not too much trouble, a cup of malted milk before bed would be perfect. Earlier that day, I had seen my adoptive mother and Clara visiting the Carters, and they had brought a tin of malted milk as a gift. You wait right here, Mrs. Carter said, already turning to mix the drink before heading to the kitchen to prepare the dumplings. I knew how her mind worked. If she thought she was going to have a grandchild, she would do anything for me. After finishing the drink, I went to sleep in Ethan's room. When I woke up the next morning, a plate of fresh dumplings was waiting on the nightstand. I ate until I was full. Seeing that Mrs. Carter wasn't awake yet, I knocked on her door. Ma'am, I want to go to Ethan's unit and tell him the good news in person. She immediately brightened. Of course you should, but I don't have much cash here, so you'll have to take the train with the hard seats. That's okay, I said. She gasped and got out of bed. Absolutely not. She pressed 50 ween into my hand. You're pregnant. You shouldn't have to be uncomfortable. Buy yourself some sponge cake for the trip. I took the money and added a reminder. Please don't tell Ethan just yet. We haven't filed the marriage paperwork. I know, she said with a knowing grin. But once you see him, tell him to submit that application right away. Before I left, I grabbed 2 apples and had Mrs. Carter pack a box of dumplings for me to take. I left the food at the front door of my house and entered through the back. Inside, my adoptive mother was crying on the sofa. What's wrong? I asked, walking over to her. Your mother was frightened by a mouse this morning, my adoptive father said with a sigh. I took a step back, hugging myself as if shivering. A mouse? How could there be one in our house? It's been taken care of. It's gone, he said, waving his hand dismissively. It's no big deal. Good, that's good, I said, patting my chest in exaggerated relief. Inside, I was certain this was Clara's doing. Mom, Dad, I began. Since Clara is back, I think it's best if I move out for a while. My adoptive mother, still dabbing at her eyes, nodded. That's probably for the best. Clara can't truly feel at home while you're here. But my adoptive father frowned. Where are you planning to go? I want to visit my brother, I lied smoothly. He hasn't written in a while, and I'm worried about him. My supposed brother, Leo, had been sent to the countryside for re-education. We were never close. He always felt that I had stolen the affection that should have been his. When he left 2 years ago, he pointed at me and shouted, You're the one who should be sent to the fields. Clara chimed in brightly. I'll write him a letter. We were so close when we were children. My heart sank as I glanced at my adoptive father, but his expression was unreadable. I remembered clearly when I first came to this house and asked about Clara. Leo had spat on the floor and muttered, If I'd known they were bringing her back, I would have drowned her in the chamber pot myself. But I pushed those memories down and kept a smile on my face. If I'm going to visit my brother, I should bring something for him. In previous years, we always brought food and money. The moment my adoptive father heard that, he said quickly, I've already prepared something. He handed me a thick envelope, and just holding it sent a chill through me. I had been gone all night, and not a single person had asked where I was. Perhaps they already knew and simply didn't care. I gathered my ID and savings. As I carried my luggage downstairs, the three of them stared at me, surprised. So sudden? My adoptive mother asked, her eyes narrowing. I smiled sadly. It's almost the 2-year anniversary of my brother being sent away. I want to surprise him. Clara curled her lip. Even being sent to the countryside is something to celebrate now? It's just something between him and me, I said casually, shaking my bag slightly. Besides, I want to be the first to tell him the good news that you're back. Suddenly, my adoptive father slapped his thigh. Wait, let me get you some food coupons. My adoptive mother took my hand. Anna, don't think I'm being biased. Clara suffered out there for 10 years. I understand, Mom, I said quietly. Of course I didn't. Just then, Clara, who had left the room, returned. Anna, where is your college acceptance letter? I put it away, I replied calmly. I want to take it to show my brother. Maybe it will encourage him to try again next year. Inside, I was laughing. Leo was a terrible student who had managed to copy my homework incorrectly. His final score in high school was a 76. He never wanted to study and always made me do his homework. My birth parents had been too poor to keep me and had sold me. They certainly couldn't afford to send me to school. I had to beg Leo, let me go to school and I'll do your homework forever. He had then said nice things about me to our adoptive parents, and I was finally allowed to study. I also spent years doing his homework, though he always gave himself away during exams, and I had to invent excuses like test anxiety. Because of that, my adoptive father would always sigh that standardized tests had ruined Leo's future. Then he added, "You make sure to talk some sense into your brother." I lowered my head and twisted the hem of my shirt. If he's willing, maybe he can take my spot at the university instead. Clara immediately shot back, "Absolutely not. He's a man and you're a woman. How could he take your place?" I pretended to be disappointed. "You're right, I can't take his place." I paused, then added before anyone could speak, "But she can take mine." My adoptive mother's eyes lit up. That university is in the same city as Ethan. I lowered my gaze and smiled faintly. "Then let Clara take it. After all, I've eaten your food and worn your clothes for 10 years. It's time I repaid you." Clara eyed me with suspicion, as if trying to gauge my sincerity. "You really feel that way?" "Of course," I said with a sad smile. "My birth parents never fed me, they only hit me. It wasn't until I came here that I understood what a family was." That part wasn't entirely true. My birth father never hit me, but he had traded me for food coupons. My adoptive mother looked at me for a long time. She had seen how hard I studied, how I stayed up all night with my books. She couldn't believe I would give up on my education so easily. Suddenly, I threw myself at her feet, clinging to her legs and sobbing. "Mom, I've had feelings for my brother since he taught me my first word. I've studied so hard because I wanted to be good enough for him." The confession hung in the air. She had raised me for 10 years as a replacement for Clara, and I had never shown any closeness to Leo. Only my adoptive father began rubbing his hands together, a strange glint in his eyes. When he first brought me home, hadn't he hoped to raise a wife for his only son? In our small town, it wasn't uncommon for families to raise girls for that purpose, saving on a dowry. I wiped my tears and began to move toward the door. "It's getting late. I need to catch the bus." My adoptive mother started to say something, but my father interrupted. Fine, go. Stay as long as you need." "Don't worry about me," I said, lifting my suitcase. "You stay home and keep Clara company." Just as I reached the doorway, I heard Clara mutter from inside. She seriously lost her mind. Maybe I had. But first, I needed to get off this rigged game board so I could start playing by my own rules. I took out the apples and dumplings I had left outside, grabbed my luggage, and went straight to the train station. That small rural station didn't have many routes, but it didn't matter. I just needed to leave that house. The day before, I had already bought my ticket. The plan was set. I would transfer at a major station and then head to Shenzhen. The era of economic reform was just beginning, and I had to get there, start making money, and build a new life for myself. In the waiting room, I sat down and took out my college acceptance letter. Slowly, I tore it into small pieces. The university's address was printed clearly on it. If I went to register, the Miller family would eventually find me. It was better to go to Shenzhen first, earn some money, and then apply to an even better university later. That's a college acceptance letter. Are you just going to rip it up like that? The man sitting next to me stared in disbelief. It's not a very good school, I replied flatly, pushing the scraps into a nearby trash can. I'm going to study for a better one, like Tsinghua or Ping University. He laughed, surprised. That's ambitious. Don't call me a student, I waved him off. I've already had 3 kids and got married years ago. He leaned a little closer. Come on, we were in high school together for 3 years. When did you have time to give birth? I think I would have noticed. You know me? I instinctively shifted away from him. Everyone knew Anna Miller, the prettiest girl in school, he said with a grin and a raised eyebrow. I'm David Chen. I was in the class next to yours. I relaxed slightly, relieved that he wasn't some kind of predator. I look like a human trafficker to you? He chuckled. Good-looking men are the best at lying, I muttered, grabbing my bag and heading for the ticket gate. Maybe we'll meet again, Anna, he shouted after me, but I didn't turn back. Once I boarded the train, I saw it was packed. I shoved my luggage under the seat and found a spot by the window. Not long after the train started moving, I heard a familiar voice. Anna Miller, fancy seeing you here. I turned and saw David lifting his backpack into the overhead rack. Is this your seat? I asked, looking at him skeptically. 9 out of 10 young men who approached me were just trying to start a conversation because of my looks. I swapped for it, he said honestly. Fine, I thought. At least it was someone I vaguely knew. I had heard stories about thieves on trains, so having him nearby might be a deterrent. I pulled out a book and pretended to read, but soon my eyelids grew heavy. Leaning against the window, I drifted off to sleep. Sometime after midnight, I woke up needing to use the restroom and was startled to find that I had slumped onto David's shoulder. A dark patch of drool stained his sleeve, and he was awake, watching me with an amused grin. Mortified, I quickly wiped my mouth and hurried down the aisle. It was only when I saw my reflection in the restroom mirror that I realized my face was bright red. It must have been the heat in the train car. Back at my seat, I pulled out the dumplings. David suddenly asked, "Can I try one?" "Just one," I said, counting them carefully before handing one over. After eating it, he praised, "These are amazing. Did you make them?" "Ethan Carter's mom made them," I replied, deliberately dropping Ethan's name. If this guy really knew me from school, he would probably know who Ethan was. "Are you going to the army base to see him?" "No," I said, staring out at the passing lights. "I'm going to meet my future." The neon glow of Shenzhen. That was the future I was chasing in this new life. He suddenly whispered, "Me too." I stuffed another dumpling into my mouth, pretending his comment was just small talk to pass the time. After 2 more train transfers, I finally boarded the green-skinned train to Shenzhen. To my surprise, David was still sitting next to me. Every time I asked, he just said he had swapped seats with someone. "Why do you keep following me?" I finally snapped. He blinked innocently. "It's just a coincidence, I swear." "I'm heading to Shenzhen too, just happened to get on the same train," David explained. "Yeah, right. As if there are that many coincidences in the world," I thought, my internal alarm bells ringing. "Just chasing my future," he said casually. "Same as you." I sneered inwardly. Trusting him would be like believing I was the first emperor of China. The dumplings were long gone. I clutched my growling stomach, trying to ignore it. Suddenly, David handed me a lunchbox. "Here, eat up. Consider it payment for the dumpling." It smelled incredible. Tender braised pork, rich and fragrant. I couldn't resist. Once I started, I finished the entire box. The old saying is true. Once you accept someone's food, you owe them. We chatted a bit after that. It turned out he had also received an acceptance letter from the same college as me, but he said his family couldn't afford it, so he wasn't going. I looked at his crisp new Dacron jacket and felt a flicker of doubt, but then I figured it had nothing to do with me. Misery loves company. I clapped him on the shoulder. "We'll both make big money in Shenzhen. Just you wait." He grinned and nodded, his eyes sparkling. But when the train pulled into the station, I was completely overwhelmed. The skyscrapers and the blinding neon signs were dizzying. How was I supposed to find work in a place like this? David, on the other hand, seemed perfectly at ease. Come on, I'll take you to the market first, he said. He led me to a clean, small hotel and told me we could stay on credit for now. No need to pay up front. I stopped in my tracks, looking at him warily. You're not trying to scam me, are you? I'll tell you right now, I'm not selling myself. He laughed, caught off guard. What do you think I am? What goes on in that head of yours? I'm young and pretty. You think I shouldn't be cautious? I grabbed my luggage and backed away. It's not that cold. I can sleep in a park if I have to. I can't trust people so easily these days. I'd rather rely on myself. David followed me. At first, I glared at him and tried to shoo him away, but when he persisted, I gave up and let him trail behind me. A few steps later, I stopped at a street stall selling buns. I bought 2 meat-filled ones and then raised my voice to the woman behind the stove. Hey, are you hiring? She wiped sweat from her brow and grinned. What can you do? I'm quick with my hands. I can wrap dumplings in buns. All right then, come on back and give it a try. I dropped my bags in a corner, rolled up my sleeves, washed my hands, and got to work. I took a piece of dough, rolled it smooth, flattened it, and filled it with meat. With my thumb and forefinger moving quickly, I crimped 18 perfect pleats. The woman smiled. You've got nice hands. Meals and lodging included, 10 win a month to start. If you do well, we'll raise it next month. Deal, I said, just as I noticed David peeking through the window. The woman followed my gaze. Is that your husband? No, I said quickly, just a friend. I hurried outside. David frowned. Are you seriously planning to work here? I just need a place to start, I said, dusting flour off my hands. Nothing wrong with starting small. He sighed. I'm staying at that hotel over there. If you need anything, come find me. Got it. Now go do your thing. I waved him off. The next day, David came by again. He didn't come inside, he just stood in front of the bun shop watching me. He didn't say a word or even buy a bun. The boss lady kept looking at me with a teasing smile, which made me uncomfortable. I finally snapped, Why are you just standing there? Go do something useful. He suddenly asked, Are you getting used to it here? It's fine, the boss lady is really nice. She sure is, he agreed with a smile. Then the woman chimed in, laughing, Your husband has the golden hands. He's a bun-making machine. The moment she said that, David laughed and waved at her. I'll take 20 buns, just the meat ones. He made all of them, she said, already packing them up. David grabbed the bag and left. From that day on, he came by like clockwork, buying 20 buns every single day. After less than a week, I couldn't take it anymore. After my shift, I went straight to the hotel where David was staying. Luckily, he was squatting right by the entrance. David Chen, what's your deal? Why are you buying buns every single day? He smiled. I like them. You can eat 20 buns a day? I challenged. I'm not eating them all myself, he explained calmly. There are 4 or 5 of us, we split them. I asked quickly, so you found a job? What kind of work is it? Can you get me in? The boss lady had recently told me that if the buns didn't sell out in the morning, she would send me home by noon. I had plenty of free time now. David looked at me seriously. Anna, you can't just sell buns forever. I know that, I said, but what else can I do? Sell clothes. You're beautiful. Just stand in a store and whatever you wear will look like it came straight from a fashion magazine. His words made my cheeks flush, but a spark of excitement ignited within me. Then I'll go check it out right now. Wait for me, I'll take you, he said, grabbing my wrist. He led me straight to a wholesale fashion mall. The racks of colorful clothes were dazzling. I felt like a country girl in a palace. Before I could take it all in, he pulled me into a women's clothing boutique. Jessica, here's the helper I told you about, he called out to the stylish woman behind the counter. Nervously, I rubbed the flour-dusted hem of my shirt and introduced myself quietly. Hi, I'm Anna Miller. This girl has a fresh, pretty look, Jessica said, giving me a quick once-over. Room and board included, 30 wien a month. Are you okay with that? Yes, of course. I nodded quickly, my heart fluttering. That afternoon, I started my new job at the boutique. The work wasn't easy, but at least I didn't have to wake up before dawn to make buns. It felt like a breath of fresh air. After work, David was waiting outside. What are you doing here? I asked, surprised. Helping you move, obviously. Oh, right. I almost forgot Jessica said she'd cover lodging. I followed him back to the bun shop where I had been staying. We ran into the boss lady. I don't think I can keep working here, I said, feeling a little awkward since it had only been a week. No worries, the breakfast business is tough, she replied kindly. She handed me 5 yuan. Here's your pay for the last few days. Thank you. I picked up my luggage and headed for the door. Behind me, she called out, Tell your husband to keep buying buns, okay? Will do, David answered cheerfully before I could stop him. I glared at him. You sure know how to take advantage. He just laughed. Can you blame me? I'd be happy to keep pretending if you'll let me. I didn't answer. I had more important things on my mind. He walked me to the same hotel as before. Why are we back here? I asked. They said the job came with lodging. This is your lodging, he said. But what about Jessica? She has a family. She lives at home. Obviously. So how much does a room here cost per month? I started to get nervous. They're not going to deduct it from my wages, are they? David suddenly burst out laughing. Relax, you can stay here. The place is mine. My mind went blank. What did you say? I said the hotel is mine. I'm not joking. My grandfather built it a couple of years ago and passed it on to me. You've got a good grandpa, I muttered, still trying to process the information. Then I asked, So Jessica is my cousin. Why didn't you say that earlier? If I had known, I would have come straight to her. Thinking back on those 2 a.m. bun wrapping sessions, I felt a pang of regret. I didn't mind hard work, but waking up that early had nearly broken me. Since then, I settled in well at Jessica's boutique. She had a fantastic eye for fashion, and every piece she chose for the store was a hit. I often wore the newest arrivals, and people on the street would stop me to ask where I got my clothes. 3 months later, Jessica opened a second store and asked me to manage it myself, even offering me a 50-50 split of the profits. I knew this was mostly because of David, and I felt a little guilty. Jessica, you don't have to do that, I said. I'm happy just earning a salary. But she insisted, splitting the profits is fair. If you sell more, I earn more too. All right then, Jessica, I promise I'll give it my all. I set up a small bed in the back of the new shop and moved in, ready to work as hard as I could. David kept telling me not to push myself, but I was desperate. I needed to save up for a house quickly. If I didn't buy one soon, the prices would rise faster than my income. What was the point of this second chance if I ended up with nothing again? Another 6 months passed. The new store was doing even better than the original, and I had managed to save a good amount of money. David asked me, Aren't you planning to take the college entrance exam? I am. I've already registered and bought the textbooks, I told him. College is my dream. Selling clothes pays the bills. One doesn't have to stop the other. Then he pulled out a set of keys. Anna, I bought a place nearby. If you're willing to be with me, you can move in. I shook my head. David, wait until I've saved enough and gotten into college. Then we can talk about that. Instead of being disappointed, he looked happy. Really? Really, I said. Over the past few months, I had learned more about him from Jessica. He was a local in Shenzhen. His parents had worked in my hometown years ago, which was why he had gone to school there. His family had seized the opportunities during the early years of reform and started a successful business. They were well off. Still, David came to see me almost every day, ate meals with me, and always tried to make me laugh. People are made of flesh and blood, and for someone like me who had been starved of affection, falling for him felt as natural as breathing. But I knew that marrying into a wealthy family wasn't simple. I needed to establish my own footing in Shenzhen first to have real confidence in our relationship. I worked hard for another 3 months and finally took the college entrance exam. Even though I was running the store during the day and could only study at night, I had taken this exact test in my previous life. I still remembered many of the questions, especially the essay topic and the major math problems. I felt confident that I had done well. I even gave David a few subtle hints. And after the exam, he said he felt good about his performance too. We were both in high spirits as we walked out of the exam hall when I suddenly saw Ethan Carter standing by the gate. Anna, I finally found you, he said, rushing forward to hug me. David immediately stepped between us, blocking him. David, you're here too? Ethan recognized him. I'm dating Anna, David said, slipping his arm around my waist. Anna, is that true? Ethan asked, his voice filled with disbelief. I nodded. It's true. You're carrying my child and you're still dating him? Ethan shouted. I sighed. Ethan, we held hands at most. There's no baby. But my mom said, then go talk to your mom, I said, not wanting to argue. Didn't he know any better? Why didn't you go to college? Why did you disappear? He asked again. Because I wanted to stay far away from the Miller family and the Carter family. Is that a good enough reason? His voice turned hurt. Did I treat you badly? I scoffed. You were good to me once, but who knew you'd turn out to be a total mama's boy? In my last life, after we got married, he never dared to go against his mother. Whatever she said was law. All I ever heard was, my mom raised me all on her own, you know. Once you marry into our family, you have to listen to my mom. Whenever I felt wronged and tried to talk to him, Ethan would either stay silent or tell me to just put up with it. But I was weak back then, thinking that if I just gave him a son, things would get better. Go home, I said. If you really care about me, don't tell anyone you saw me. You're really going to leave me? Ethan grabbed my arm. We're not meant to be, I said firmly. Unless your mother disappears from the face of the earth, I will never step foot in your house again, not even if it kills me. Ethan suddenly cursed. You vicious woman. I couldn't be bothered to argue. I pulled David away and we left. You held hands with him? David suddenly turned to look at me. Mm-hmm, I murmured softly. He suddenly grabbed my hand, his eyes shining. Then I get to hold your hand too. I was about to nod with a smile when he shouted, Grandpa! An old man in a tank top and slippers walked over, fanning himself casually. So this is the girl you've been talking about. I wasn't sure how to respond, but David answered right away. Yep, isn't her name pretty? Anna Miller. Then he turned to me. Anna, this is my grandpa. Nice to meet you, sir, I said politely. I had heard his family was in business, but seeing how simply his grandfather dressed caught me off guard. Come home for dinner. Your grandma's already cooked, Grandpa said, turning to leave. David held my hand and led me toward their home. The moment we stepped inside, his grandmother came out to greet us. So this is the girl? That's right, Grandpa chuckled. Finally brought her home. David grinned and nodded. His grandma smacked her thigh. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I didn't prepare anything nice. Watching how warm and relaxed they were, something inside me melted. There wasn't a trace of arrogance in this family. After dinner, the old couple slipped me a red envelope. I tried to refuse, but Grandma insisted, stuffing it into my hand. Take it. David didn't go to college last year because of you. All I hope is that you'll be good to him. My nose stung. So he hadn't skipped college because of money. His family had been furious, and he had moved into that small hotel just to be close to me. On the way back to the clothing store, I looked at him and said, David, don't ever do something so foolish for me again. No one is worth that. He just smiled. How is it not worth it? I only applied to that college because of you. If you weren't going, why would I? You lied to me, I said. You said you came to Shenzhen to chase your future. He looked down at me, his gaze intense. You are my future. I threw my arms around him. Thank you. Later, I found out he'd had a crush on me since high school. The day I went to the train station to buy my ticket, he happened to see me and bought one too, just to follow me. Maybe that was the true gift of being reborn, waking up. To find that the first person you saw would be the one to light up the rest of your life. Just like in a fairy tale, we were accepted into the same university. Then we got married and had a child. I didn't give up the clothing business. I became Jessica's partner, and together we opened several more stores and hired many employees. For 2 years, I had no contact with the Miller family until a letter arrived from Ethan. He said my adoptive father was seriously ill. After thinking it over, I decided to go back, mainly to sort out the paperwork for my household registration. David and I left our child with his grandparents and boarded the train home. When we arrived at the Miller residence, white mourning cloths were already hanging in the yard. In just 3 short years, my adoptive mother looked 10 years older. Leo Miller greeted me with only a faint, "You're back." "What happened?" I whispered. "Why did he pass away so suddenly?" He let out a cold laugh. "That woman wasn't even the real Clara. She was your real sister." I had long suspected it. Back then, before I was taken away, my 13-year-old sister had volunteered to go with our adoptive father. But just 3 days later, our adoptive mother decided she was unsuitable. Our adoptive father then brought me back instead. What I didn't expect was that after 10 years, the chubby girl I remembered had become as thin as a rail. I had tried to probe, saying, "My biological parents abused me," but he had instinctively defended them, saying they were just poor and that my sister used to love catching mice to roast and eat. These details had escaped me in my previous life, but now they stood out clearly. Still, I never called him out on it. The Miller family didn't care who played the part of the long-lost daughter. Whether it was me or my sister made no difference to them. "So where is she now?" I asked casually. "She's dead," Leo replied. But before the words had fully left his mouth, our adoptive mother lunged at me, screaming and cursing. "You wretched girl!" Startled, I stumbled back. David quickly stepped in front of me, shielding me, and led me out of the house. As we walked through the yard, we ran into Ethan Carter. He let out a long sigh and began to tell us what had happened over the past 2 years. It turned out that after I left, the family assumed I had gone to stay with Leo. It wasn't until school was about to start and they wrote to him that they realized I had never been there. When Clara failed to take my spot at the university, she turned her attention to marrying Ethan, but the Carter family refused. Eventually, Clara became involved with our adoptive father. They were even discovered in bed together by our adoptive mother. A few weeks ago, Clara found out she was pregnant. That was the final straw for our adoptive mother. She grabbed a kitchen knife and attacked both our adoptive father and Clara. But because she had a certified history of mental illness, she wasn't sentenced to prison. David pulled me away from that place quickly. As we left, I glanced back at the now dilapidated courtyard. Before I had left that house all those years ago, I had written a letter to my sister, telling her everything about what kind of family this was. But some roads we choose to walk ourselves, and those who walk in darkness for too long will eventually seal their own fate.